All right, wonderful. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Laura Winnie, and I'm the educator for DuPage County Animal Services. Tonight, our topic is feline adolescence. It's real, it can be fun, it can also be not fun. So, just a little bit of housekeeping before we dive into the content. As much as I would love to see your bright, shining, smiling faces, please keep your videos off. For the presentation, Zoom gets a little angry when a lot of us are sharing video, and I do have a cute video to share with you in the presentation as well. Please also keep yourselves muted. We are recording this for those who are unable to join us tonight. But if you do have a question and you're afraid you're going to forget it, feel free to throw it into the chat box. The presentation should be about 50-ish minutes, but I get paid by the hour. So I'm going to hang out for as long as you guys have questions. So at the end, I'll let you know, we can unmute ourselves and feel free to ask any questions. Now, a little bit of a disclosure, I am not a cat behavioral specialist. I am not a Jackson Galaxy, but I work with some pretty cat savvy people. I do have a cat myself, and I am more than happy to answer any questions that I can. And those that I can't, I will probably take to the team or do further research on. So even if you have a tough question, go ahead, throw it at me. Maybe I know it. And if I don't, I'm going to work really hard to get you that answer, because one of the reasons I love this job is I'm always learning new stuff. So if you have a tough question, that just means I get to learn something new as well. So like I said, if at any point you have a question, you are welcome to throw it into that chat box. And for those of you unfamiliar with where that chat box is, I'm going to throw the link to our program survey, hint, hint, into the chat box, and you can see where that is. Now, hopefully at the end, I will remind you to take a look at that short survey. We love to get your feedback on our programs. We are trying to constantly improve it. Don't worry, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I just want to know stuff. I want to know how we're doing. Plus, I'm also looking for ideas for future webinars. So makes the most sense to ask those who are attending what you would like to learn about next. So feel free, click that link at the end and let us know what you're thinking. Okay, that's out of the way. We're going to do a dive into feline adolescence. So what is a feline teenager? What does that look like? Around what age? What do teens need from us? And then what are those common issues that make us want to pull out our hair? And what are some strategies that we can use to get through them? All right. So for most cats, it's going to be kittenhood, all right? So their babies is going to be 0 to 6 months, all right, on average. A junior cat, a teenager, is going to be somewhere in that 7-month to 2-year phase. And then once they reach that 3-year, they're considered pretty much an adult at that point. Then we get into mature cat at 7 years to 10 years. And then anything over 11 years is what we consider a senior cat. Now, this will vary by breed. Some breeds have a little bit longer longevity than others, okay? But typically you're going to see that 6-7 month to 2-year period be considered their junior cat phase, their teenage phase. Now, what we consider like what is sometimes called the terrible twos, or that true feline teen behavior, can happen anywhere in there, okay? It's not necessarily right at 2 years old. You could have that crazy adolescence, rebellious, you can't tell me what I can't do phase as early as 6 months, all right? The good news is you don't have to wait until they turn 3 for them to get out of that. The worst of the behavior typically only lasts 4 to 6 months. And yes, I'm aware that only 4 to 6 months is very easy to say, not necessarily easy to live with. But in perspective, it is a short amount of time that we're going to be going through this rebellious phase, okay? And it is very important to understand that all animals go through a teenage phase, and nobody should be judged on what they look like when they are a teenager. Okay. That's like if you were to look back at me when I was a teenager, I heard a great quote the other day. If you're not embarrassed by what you did as a teenager, it means you haven't grown up at all. Okay. So that is true across the board. I'm sure if our feline cats could have some self awareness, they would also be embarrassed by stuff that they did as a teenager, okay? Because there's going to be some things that they might regret. Behavior changes are going to be the most obvious signs. So those hormones, just like in human teens, those hormones are going crazy, all right? And you typically have that like little kitten head, that little kitten brain inside an adult body. So you might notice some uncleanliness as well, right? I mean, they're growing a little faster than they realize. So discoordination, things like that. And at this point, they're also going to have probably some of the highest energy levels of their lifetime during this phase. I look back on my teenage self and go, man, I once ran a mile. That was a cool Saturday. I mean, no, I haven't done that since, okay? Because I couldn't do it now. But my hormone rattled brain and body let me do it then. So, yeah, heightened energy. And they're going to be pushing those boundaries. They're going to be exploring their world to the fullest. They're going to be looking and trying to find adventure in every nook and cranny of your home, okay? So, you're going to see lots of different expressions of this behavior. Some of it is just getting into places that you have never seen them before. One of my favorite memories of my cat was when I walked out into the kitchen one early Saturday morning and she was somehow on top of the refrigerator. She'd never done that before. And that was during her teenage phase. She would just all of a sudden found herself on the refrigerator. She couldn't figure out how to get down because she, like I said, kitten brain and an adult body, right? So that was fun for all involved. Had to pry her off of the refrigerator top to get her back to safety. And sure enough, a couple hours later, she did it again. Pushing boundaries, trying to explore their environment to the fullest to eke out as much fun as they possibly can. So that is what we're looking like again for those feline teens. And like I said, the worst of the behavior is going to be that 4 to 6 month period. And it can be trying because you had this adorable cute little kitten and now you have this rebellious furry monster that doesn't want anything to do with you but would love nothing more than to destroy all your stuff. That's a worst case scenario. Okay, it doesn't happen with every cat, but it is important to understand that sometimes they've grown up to the point where they realize that they're lacking things in their life. I mean, let's face it, when you look at the history of cats, we took them from out in the wild hunting their prey every single day, and we brought them inside a 1,500 square foot environment, and we want them to potty in a box that maybe isn't all that clean all the time. Okay, so that is a big leap. And as far as like evolutionary behavior changes, there aren't that many differences along the lines. We've mostly selected for looks when it comes to our cats, not necessarily for behavior. Now, absolutely, there are changes in behavior when you look at different breeds. There are some constants in certain breeds that you don't see in others. But when you really compare house cat, wild cat, the behavior differences are not as stark as when you look at, like, for example, Pomeranian and wolf. Okay. So that is something to keep in mind as well, that in the blink of an eye, evolutionary speaking, we have brought them into our house and asked them to massively override all of their instinctual behavioral traits. So this is where a lot of that during this time period is where a lot of those urges are coming into their own and they're looking for outlets. So we really need to make sure that we're providing as much as we can to give them an outlet for these natural instinctive behaviors. So what do our cats need in their lives? Remember, during this period, they're going to have probably the most heightened energy levels of their entire lives. So you guessed it. If you're thinking, yeah, they need to be able to interact a lot. They need to be able to engage. So we'll get to playmates in a little bit, but first let's talk about their environment. All right. I love the setup in this picture. There's so much variety and it's going to be very stimulating for your pet. It's going to give them a variety of heights to interact with. And with those heights, you're going to get different views. Okay. And then there's also different textures. They have some cat safe plants in there so they can get their chew on and have something nice and safe that's not your prized daisies or whatever it is you have in your house that they're going after. Instead, there are appropriate things that they can interact with. So remember what we talked about. We've asked them to go from several miles of territory down to 1,500 square feet, okay? Or more or less, depending on the size of your house. So that's going to be their whole world. DuPage County Animal Services, we do not recommend letting cats outside. In fact, it's in our adoption contracts that the cats we adopt out are indoor cats, not only because there are so many dangers out there for cats, car strikes, poisons, predators, all sorts of things, you know, that they can get hurt, injured, or even killed by, but also because domestic cats have a very negative impact on the environment. They're kind of murder machines and they will go and have fun with whatever thing they can catch. So birds, squirrels, baby rabbits, anything. So the recommendation is to keep cats indoors and to make their indoor world as enticing and interesting as possible. Now, when we talk about having these different heights and these different textures, we want to make sure that it's something that they can easily interact with that's not going to wobble. It makes sense, right? If you were going to try to climb a ladder to get a view, you wouldn't want one that was wobbly. You know, you'd be like, I think I'll stay on the ground. Okay. So we want to make sure that you're regularly checking their play areas and their rest areas, especially if they're up high, to make sure that everything is still nice and secure, because things can loosen over time and we want to make sure that it's going to feel secure for them to encourage them to use these spaces. For scratching areas in particular, you want to have something with a nice wide base, because cats have been known to like ambush tackle their scratching areas, okay, in play. Like that's just like bam, and they go for it, okay? So making sure that that's not something that's going to tip over easily is going to be important, because it's very hard to come back from something that was really scary. So if they tackle a scratching post and it falls on them, at that point, it's going to be really, really hard to convince them that the scratching post is a worthwhile place, as opposed to the living room sofa, which never falls on them. Okay. So we want to make sure that when we're introducing these things, we're providing them in a way that's going to maximize the appeal and also, you know, not cause any negative associations. And cats like to scratch in a variety of ways. I know when my kitten was young, her favorite was actually horizontal. She liked to fully stretch out and scratch in the carpet. That was her destruction area of choice. So we provided horizontal mats that she could then use and save the carpet. And we started out by putting them, bam, right where she was already used to scratching. And again, it needs to be something pretty sturdy that's not going to just move. You can add some enticement to it. We'll talk more about how to do that later. Sisal rope, bark, those are all great things that you can use. Even carpeting are all great materials that you can look for in scratching posts. And you might need to play around with location and all that stuff because they will have their favorites. But, you know, when you have kittens maybe climbing the drapes or something like that, instead of climbing on their cat approved rope ladder, you might need to draw their attention to the desirable locations. So treats are a great way to do that. Also catnip, if your kittens are interested in catnip. Of course, if you're first introducing catnip, you always want to do so in moderation, under supervision, just to make sure that everything's okay, right? We just want to make sure. And then you can also get that full-on love of seeing your cat just go absolutely insane. That's always fun. So absolutely, when you're using catnip for the first couple times, do so supervised so you can enjoy it, and you can also make sure that your cat is actually enjoying it. So with all of this fun, destructive play, we definitely want to make sure that we are cat-proofing our house. You may have already done some of this when you first brought a kitten into the home. If you followed the recommendations, maybe you started your kitten off in a specific cat-proofed room. So you started them off small before giving them access to the house. You may not have thought about, ooh, now that they have access to the rest of the house, I need to secure all my valuables in the rest of the house. So we want to remove the enticements and the hazards that may draw your cat's attention because we want their focus on appropriate playthings. So glass vases off of surfaces, shelves, tables, things like that. Any other breakable items we might want to remove or secure for the time being. Cords. There is nothing more enticing for a cat than a swinging cord. We want that to only be on a wand toy that we're playing with. So if you have blinds or curtains, go ahead and tie those up nice and high where they can't get them, or even tuck them away out of sight. If there are areas where you are unable to cat proof, you might consider doing different barriers. Some baby gates have been effective, but I will be honest with you, really the only thing that's going to keep a cat specifically out of a room is a solid door, because I don't know of a cat that hasn't been able to get over a baby gate if they weren't really, really excited about something. Okay. They kind of provide their own mental enrichment there is, ooh, how do I get past this barrier to get to thing X that I really want? So might consider removing thing X from an open space and putting it into a closed room where your cat does not have access to it. Cords, especially as we get into the holiday season, can be particularly enticing for our felines for them to chew on. So cord protectors is going to be very, very helpful. So you can buy them online at most pet stores as well. And just something that's going to do a little sleeve over those cords to protect them. Okay. And then make sure if this is your first cat, or if you've gotten new plants, maybe you recently got a green thumb, good for you. I don't. But if you have plants in the home, absolutely make sure you do your research to check to see if they're hazardous, because your senior cat who passed away 2 years ago may never have cared about the vase of lilies you kept in the living room. Probably at some point your teenage feline is going to want to investigate, and since those are very, very toxic, that is a risk you do not want to take. So research any plants that you have out and make sure that they are going to be safe for your cat if they decide to take an interest in them. You can also use deterrents to prevent cats from getting to certain areas. So there are the carpet runners. They're like plastic sheets with little plastic nubbies on the underside. If you flip those over so the nubby sides are up, that's not going to be comfortable for the cat to stand on. So we will talk more about where we can use those in a little bit when we talk about the issues. Double-sided sticky tape is also an unpleasant feeling for their feet and their booties if they chose to sit somewhere. So that can be something that we use on surfaces. but keep in mind that you can't just do the edges, right? Because they very quickly learn to just whoop, go right over them. So you do need to apply them consistently. You can try using scents to keep cats away. They are very sensitive to certain smells. There are some commercial products that you can purchase at the pet store. You just have to play with it to see how effective they are for your cat. For some cats, whatever the enticement is going to be worth whatever discomfort they have by smelling those smells. And absolutely, before looking into making your own, double check the ingredients to make sure that they are not going to cause any problems with your cat. You know, there's no toxicity concerns or anything like that. Okay, so at DuPage County Animal Services, we always say that 2 kittens are half the work of 1 kitten because they have a built-in playmate. And that means that they can play with each other. And you are not the sole focus of that little pea brain's attention. And I say pea brain with all the love and respect that it deserves. But trust me, it's a lot. It can be a lot. And especially because we have lives outside the house. How would we feel if somebody asked us to sit quietly in a room and do absolutely nothing for 9 hours? The first day might be awesome. After that, you're going to get real bored real quick. Okay? So when you're gone, having 2 kittens in an appropriate space can be very, very helpful for them to get their energy out and to really live life to the fullest there. Not only that, but let's face it, we don't speak cat. In fact, you may have noticed with your kitten for the first couple months, they don't even really know how to meow yet. And by knowing how to meow, I mean knowing how to meow loud enough for us to hear it. Because when your tiny little kitten does one of those silent, they're making noise. We just can't hear it. Other cats would be able to hear it, okay? But they treat us kind of like we're blind, we're deaf, blind, and stupid, and they shout at us. They learn that they have to shout to get our attention. So we do not speak cat as much as we think we do. And having a kitten play with another kitten, they can teach each other what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. So especially like bite inhibition. So, you know, when a kitten bites down on us, we might scream, ow, but a kitten's not necessarily going to know what that means. If they bite too hard on another kitten friend and that kitten reacts, it's the same language. They're going to understand what that means. They're like, ooh, went too hard, right? So we need to make sure that any kittens that we bring into our home have had that chance to be with either litter mates or other kittens or other cats so that they get that education in their own language from an early age. And also training is going to be easier with kittens, with 2 kittens or 2 cats, because it's very easy for a cat to see one of them being rewarded for something, and then they're not being rewarded for not doing something. Okay, so it's kind of like it's an idiot that doesn't learn from his own mistakes, but it's an outright fool who doesn't learn from the mistakes of others. Okay, being able to see another cat offering up behaviors that get rewarded, they're going to start to mimic those behaviors because they want the treat too. They want the reward as well. So it does make training easier because you do have that opportunity for one of the pair to get the message and then pass the message on to the other one through emulation. Now, if you do not have the bandwidth to have 2 kittens in your home, I get it, all right? But that means the responsibility is going to fall on you. And you are going to need to be mother, father, brother, sister, playmate extraordinaire to that little ball of fluff, okay? And this can be tough because, again, we have busy lives and we have stuff that we want to do. Sometimes when we set aside time to play, it's not the appropriate time for the cat. All right, so we really need to pay attention to their natural schedule. In general, kittens are going to be more active in the morning and then in the evening, but this can vary. All right. My cat uses her litter box at 10 a.m. and at 10:30, bam, she's ready to go with play. She loves playing at 10:30 after she's pottied. I think she just feels so much lighter and she's like, I can fly. And she's pretty much always been like that. Okay. So that is her prime playing time. So we try to take a little break, even though she's 11 years old, she still loves to play at that time. And she still comes tearing into the living room and, like, oh, okay, gotta go scoop the litter box. She just had a moment. So pay attention to when your cat is the most active. They're letting you know, this is when I want to play. This is when I feel good. This is when I'm happy. This is when I'm excited. And start to schedule those times for play to match up with what they're doing, if at all possible. Okay. During this teenage phase, probably going to want to have a couple of different play sessions a day. So 2 to 3 times a day. Ideally, morning and evening are very good because that can fall in line with most of their natural schedules. All right. And you might want 15 to 30 minutes in those play sessions. Now, some kittens are going to need more. Some are just naturally going to be more athletic and higher energy. Some of them are going to be more on the couch potato end, and maybe 2 15-minute sessions is going to be good. That's going to be enough to get their energy out for the day so that they can go on and do their catnap things, And it is crucial that when we are doing these training sessions, that we are only doing appropriate play. And what I mean by that is that we are not using our body parts as toys. And this is something we want to start even when they're tiny little kittens, because if a tiny little kitten bites you on the foot, it's kind of cute, but they are practicing behaviors that can become permanent. And when an adult cat bites you on the foot, it's no longer cute. So we never, ever want to use our body parts as toys. We always want to have a toy in between, okay? And we'll talk more about what those can look like. But we want to make sure that if at any point they get too wound up, that we can walk away, okay? Now, how do you play with a cat? I don't know how many times I've heard, no, my cat doesn't like to play. My cat hates to play. And when you ask further questions, a lot of the times the confusion seems to come from their cat's play no longer looks like it did when they were a kitten. Okay, because kittens will play with anything and they will go whole hog and they will just attack and have a great time with anything. As your cat gets older, as it starts going through these hormonal changes, it may not have the same play style as it did as a kid. Okay, and that is completely natural, right? I mean, I used to play with a box when I was a kid. Right now, I'm only excited about a box when it has an Amazon thing on the side, right? So we want to make sure that we are modifying how we play with our cat's growing needs. Now, the key thing here is that when we play with our cats, this sounds obvious, but it's not. It needs to be fun for the cat. That means it might not be fun for you. It might be boring. And that is okay, because it's not about you. It's about what your cat wants, okay? So when we are using toys and we are trying to engage them, we never, ever want them to get super frustrated. We want to let them win. We want to let them pounce. We want to let them do that thing where they pounce on the toy and they carry it away, right? Hunt successful. I'm done. Okay. Let them do that. Don't rip it back right out of their mouth, okay? Because then they don't get to count that as a win. We want to make sure that we let them win from time to time. Also, just because your cat doesn't immediately pounce on something doesn't mean they're not engaged. If your cat is watching the movement of the toy, they are engaged. Think about their ancestors. Cats out in the wild spend a large portion of their time watching. They watch the prey, they follow it, and they save up those bursts of energy for when they see a good opportunity. Okay, they're not just constantly running after things. Yes, cheetahs can run 70 miles an hour, but only for like a minute. Okay, so they're saving up those bursts of energy for the right time, and they find the right time by watching. So if they're watching, they're engaged. They may not do the crazy chasing as much as they did when they were super little, but that's okay because they're still actively participating in the activity. And you may need to play around with what toys you use. Not all of them are going to be fun. Your cat may have a specific prey item that they like to hunt. Maybe it's feathers, emulating a bird. Maybe it's a worm. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a butterfly. Okay, there's something that may attract their attention more than others. And we want you to think and act like prey. Okay, so let your cat stalk. Let them chase it, let them catch it, and let them carry their kill away. Vary up the movements of how you're doing. Don't just swing it back and forth in a predictable fashion. Okay, vary it up. Also, don't bop them on the head with the prey because that is something prey would never ever do. I have never ever seen a bird come up to a cat and tap it on the forehead and be like, hey, kill me. You need to act like prey. Move it away. Even have it hide. Bring it out of sight. You may be surprised to see how many times your cat's like, what? Where'd it go? And then they re-engage in the game. They chase after it to keep an eye on it. Even like have it go underneath a towel or around a piece of furniture can help with that. Now we want to make sure that we are engaging those natural instincts. So there are two types of enrichment in broad categories. There's the physically engaging enrichment and the mentally engaging. So basically for physicality, we get their bodies moving. Instead of feeding their kibble in a bowl, you can scatter it around, put it up in their cat tree, so that they have to go and find it. They have to use their senses to hunt that food down. Playing with toys and exercise, of course, are all great ones. An obstacle course is an option for those of you who have a lot of space in your home or lots of variety in heights and things. I'll show you an example in a second. And then for mentally engaging, you can try food puzzles. So here's an easy one. This is a muffin tin with some kibbles and little balls, and the cat needs to figure out how to get the balls out of the way to get to the kibble. You might want to start off easy, just have the muffin tin with the treats in it, and then start adding in things to block it. And then as your cat gets better at this game, you can make the items bigger and bigger and bigger to block more of the access. You can do training. We do training with our cats at DuPage County Animal Services. We teach little nose kisses. We teach high fives, all sorts of things that you can do. The internet is your world when you're looking at training opportunities for your cats, because this is going to get them thinking. Giving them access to views of the outside world can also be very beneficial. So catios are amazing, but also even just perches at windows where they can see out and see what's going on. Those are going to be great as well. And yes, cats can be trained to walk on a harness and leash. There's lots of tutorials out there. It is recommended to start them off earlier, as early as you can, to get them used to that. Trying to start out an adult cat on something like that can be a lot harder. But speaking of obstacle courses, I just wanted to show you Dean, who we had a few years ago at the shelter. He mastered our first obstacle course. And so we set up one that was a little bit more elaborate. Now, Danielle here is using a treat to lure him. And every once in a while, she's rewarding him. She's giving him that treat for following her instructions. And eventually, she's going to fade out the lure. So basically, she's not going to need to have a treat in her hand to get Dean to run this course. And super fun for him. He got to, he had to think about like, okay, where am I going? So it was mentally engaging. And then, of course, physically engaging as he was jumping up and moving around and exploring that room to the fullest. So not all toys are created equally, all right? We have there is an amazing market out there for all sorts of things, but keep in mind that your cat is going to have personal preferences. So it is recommended to try a variety to see which ones are your cat's favorites. Wand toys can be awesome. Like I said, they may be interested in only a particular kind of lure, like the feathers or maybe the worms, something like that. Cat Dancer is one of my favorite ones. It's a wire with some cardboard pieces, and when you move it, it kind of looks like a bug moving around, bouncing around. So that's a really fun one, and it costs like $2. Kicker toys. So those long ones that maybe have some crinkly on the inside that they can hug and pounce and kick at with their back feet, like the little murder monsters that they are. Chasing toys. So rolly balls, catnip toys, things that you can throw and they can chase. And then solitary toys. So ones that they can interact with on their own. Ones that maybe dangle down and are attached to, for instance, a scratching post or those spinny balls inside the wheels that they can hunt. Keep in mind, again, different preferences. So you may need to try out a couple different types to see what they're interested in. Laser pointers have become very, very popular for cats, but a note of caution, they can be very frustrating because the cat never actually wins. They never actually catch the little red lights. So we recommend using this very limitedly and only using it with other toys, giving them something, shining the light on something that they can actually pounce on, or even shining it on a piece of food or a treat that they then get to eat. So they get that win. Okay, so the reason I'm sure a lot of you are here, let's talk about those common issues that we might see during those teenage years and some strategies to take care of them. So the midnight serenades, the screaming their little heads off at 2 o'clock in the morning. A lot of times that's attention seeking, okay? Now we need to figure out, what are they seeking? Are they signaling to cats out in the neighborhood, hey, looking for a date? All right. Are they looking for your attention or are they looking for food? Okay. One of the easiest ways to deal with the your attention or the food is to ignore them. It is much harder for them to come back from, oh, you gave me attention last night after I screamed for half an hour. Cool. Tonight I'm going to scream for 45 minutes. You're just going to teach persistence at that point, okay? So do not give in. You want to be consistent with ignoring them. If you're noticing this on a regular basis, they may need extra playtime before bed, okay? And one of the things that I do in my household is we have a nice intense playing session and then it's dinner time. So we do dinner time right before bed, right before my bedtime, okay? So then they've got their yayas out by chasing the thing. They get to eat, so it like emulates that kill, right? Because now they get to eat. And then after food, typically it's grooming time. So give them a bath. And by that point, I'm already in bed fast asleep. And now, okay, well, after bath time, now it's my turn to sleep. So it can be a lot easier to get through the night if you follow patterns like that. They may need to go into an isolated environment overnight if you're noticing particular neediness, especially if you have a single cat. They may need their own room where they have lots of things to interact with. Of course, making sure that they have access to food, water, and a litter box in that room just while this phase is going on. Okay. And if it's food that they're going after, automatic feeders can be great, because they're going to start screaming at the automatic feeder and not in your face. So that can be very helpful. Now, if you do think that they are looking for a mate and there are other signs of that, then spaying and neutering are going to be the easiest fixes for something like that. Now, not so fun play where they ambush your ankles, they start to attack your feet under the blanket. Maybe you're petting them and they bite you very quickly after you start petting them. Maybe they're bullying other cats in the home. Maybe they're actually pouncing on other cats, something like that. We want to make sure that we never ever use our body parts as toys, because that can get very confusing. If when we're awake, it's okay to attack our feet, but all of a sudden it's not okay when we're asleep, that sends a very mixed message. So we do want to make sure that we have a consistent pattern with that body parts are not toys. You can use a loud noise or a puff of air kind of directed towards their face. Don't blow like right in their face, but towards their face to startle the cat out of the behavior. And if you notice that they are doing this at certain times, I'd have toys stashed around the house that you can easily access and intercept them with. So if you know that when you get up at 6 a.m. to go to the bathroom, they're hiding around the doorway, ready to pounce on you as soon as you walk by. On the other side of the door, have a wand toy and use that as you're walking down the hallway. Again, keep in mind, this is typically a temporary phase, okay, where they're going to be this insane. So hanging out with a toy for a couple of months may be worth it to save your ankles. Now, if you are bitten or scratched, stop play immediately and walk away. We want to teach that fun stops if pain is involved. Now, if you're noticing that your cat is biting you when you're petting them, you might want to check in for feline consent. And the way to do this is to pet like once or twice and stop and see if they re-engage with you. Cats have very, very sensitive skin, and it's easy for them to get overstimulated, especially during this teen phase where all the hormones are going haywire, okay? So it's possible that what was fine as a kitten and what's fine as an adult is completely overstimulating as a teenager. So pet once or twice and then stop. And if they re-engage, again, pet once or twice and stop, and let them choose to continue the interaction. Because you'll be surprised at how often they only wanted one pet and now they're done and they're ready to go away, okay? Now, if you have multiple cats in the household and one of them is bullying the other, you may need to provide them with separate spaces, especially during those high energy times. If you have two cats that get into it and start to fight, you can use a towel to throw that over them to interrupt the inappropriate play, and then it'll protect you as you're picking up a cat to remove from the situation. So scratching is a necessary cat behavior. It marks their territory with their scent and it makes them feel safe. It removes the outer sheath of their nails and promotes healthy nail growth. And it also provides relaxation. You know, when they do that nice big stretch, that's a way that they're going to relax. So you're never ever going to completely prevent scratching. The idea is that we get them to scratch appropriate places, okay? Provide a variety. If you notice that they're doing both horizontal and vertical scratching and you only have one vertical scratching post, maybe you need one of those big cardboard scratchers that they can like really stretch out on horizontally to entice them to that. Block undesirable locations with appropriate things. So you can hang those cardboard scratchers off the edge of your furniture where they're attracted to, and reward them when they choose wisely. You can use treats, you can use catnip, all sorts of things. During this process of teaching them to use appropriate places, you want to trim their nails every couple weeks and use really good treats to make that a good experience for them. Or your vet can put little plastic caps over the nails. They do need to be replaced regularly, but they dull down the nails so that they're not actually ripping into anything. At DuPage County Animal Services, we strongly advocate against decline, or as I like to call it, amputation, because it is a permanent removal of the furthest knuckle, okay? So it's taken off that knuckle joint, and it can cause serious behavior issues down the line. Surgeries go wrong and cause severe pain and complications. And then also it changes how they walk. Think about if somebody cut off all your toes. It would change how you walk, and it can cause severe back issues and arthritis later on in life for them. So if you're struggling with this, please reach out to us. We are more than happy to provide additional strategies for you to try. Other destructive behaviors is often a sign of boredom, okay? So they are finding their own fun because they don't have anything fun to play with, or what they think is fun to play with. Again, you can provide all the toys you like, but if your cat doesn't like them, might as well not even bother. So we really need to engage with our cats where we can. If they're really into climbing the drapes, maybe they need additional vertical ways to climb up and explore the home. So really look at what they're interested in so that you can find appropriate ways to copy that. Okay. Reward the use of appropriate items, catnip, toys, treats, all sorts of things that they like, you can put on these items. And you may need to increase the amount of time you are actively engaging with your cat if you notice that they're finding their own fun a lot. Spraying can be confused with inappropriate elimination. So peeing is when they squat down and the tail is slightly raised. Spraying, they're standing and they're typically spraying along a vertical surface like a wall, a tree, furniture, something like that. Now, most of the time this occurs in males, sometimes in females, and it's probably, it's probably being caused by those hormonal changes in males because they want to let the ladies know that they're ready to mingle. All right. They may also be warning male cats to stay away from their territory. Now, if you're not sure whether it's peeing outside the litter box or if it's spraying, this is something that you can talk to your vet about, because if they're peeing outside the litter box, it may be due to a medical issue. The easiest way to take care of this is to spay and neuter your cat. If a male is neutered the first time that he sprays, there is a 90 to 95% chance that he will never spray again. Okay, most of the time it nips that right in the bud. However, practice makes permanent. So the longer that male cat goes practicing spraying urine, the harder it's going to be to break that habit. So pay attention to the patterns. When is this happening and where? If it's a multi-cat household and your cat is spraying along the walls of one bedroom or maybe outside where the litter box is kept, he may be trying to prevent others from using that area, and you need to provide additional resources for those cats so that they're not fighting over limited resources. If, let's say, it's happening by the couch that's by the living room window, are they seeing outdoor cats going on? Are they trying to warn the cats outside the home, hey, this is mine? So you may need to block the views of cats outside the home to make your cat feel more confident in their own territory. Now, you may notice extreme neediness in these teenage cats. It's something that I think some of us would prefer our human teenagers showed, but it can also get really annoying when they're just like, hey, 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 hey. It's a lot, okay? So they may be extremely vocal, they may be rubbing up against you, they may be just invading your space all the time, and if you work from home, that can be a major pain. okay? Because we have stuff to do. You may also notice it in female cats who are experiencing their first heat if they have not been spayed. This is typically going to happen at that 5 to 10 month, and they'll just be like rubbing against you constantly. They'll be meowing. They may even pee outside the litter box as a way to signal to the boys, yo, look who grew up. Okay, so but the extreme neediness to the people in the house is a sign as well. Again, it's another common sign of boredom. So we absolutely need to make sure that we are providing enrichment for our cats, that they can have their own alone time activities when we need to get stuff done, but rewarding the extreme neediness behavior by giving them that attention can perpetuate the cycle, right? You're teaching persistence in that regard. So a lot of times you just need to ignore the behavior, just like we did with the midnight serenades, okay? And try to provide a lot of playtime during those appropriate times and making sure that they have activities to keep themselves busy when you're busy. And then if this is because of a first heat, highly recommend spaying so that you're never going to have to go through that again. And you don't accidentally wind up with a whole bunch of kittens that you don't want later on in the line. So those are some of the quick fixes for that. Spaying and neutering can take care of a lot of behavior problems, and it also prevents a host of medical issues down the line. Plus, again, unwanted litters. If you haven't looked at our website recently, there is no lack of available cats and kittens out in the world. So let's try not to add additional ones to it. Now, what we should avoid when dealing with problematic behaviors, we never ever want to punish. We never ever want to physically strike our cat, even a bop on the nose. We don't want to do that because that might turn playful attacks into defensive attacks where they realize, oh, you're the enemy. We're not playing anymore. I need to protect myself. Or they may just grow fearful of you. Okay. It also, right, teaches them that, hey, hands are playthings. Awesome. No, we never ever want to do that. We also need to avoid mixed signals. So this is a conversation to have with your entire family. I know this is something that me and my husband struggled with. If my cat was crying in the middle of the night and he woke up first, he went out and gave her food. I woke up first, I turned over. It took a lot longer because we were not on the same page. And since one of us was asleep when the other was doing something, we didn't always know. So have that conversation with your family if you notice these problem behaviors. If you start changing up the routine or what's allowed, that can be very confusing. So for example, if one family member loves to play with the hands, but another one doesn't. Again, that's a conversation you need to have with that whole family to make sure everybody's on the same page so that you're not confusing your cat and leading them to frustration. So you can use sharp noises to startle your cat out of an inappropriate behavior. Okay, pennies in a can, a shot, hey, something like that. What works even better in my experience is to teach a come to me cue and teach them by rewarding them when they do come. That way, if they're doing something that you don't like and you call, they'll be like, oh, okay, never mind, let's go do this. And then they get something rewarding. It interrupts the behavior and it teaches them that going over here and doing something else gets them the rewards that they want. And remember, this too shall pass, okay? This is going to be a tough couple months. I understand. We were all teenagers once, and, bless our parents, they survived it too. This is only a couple of months, and if it does get extreme, if you feel that you're at the end of your rope, reach out to us. There are professionals that can help with behavior problems, that can coach you through different strategies, things like that. We love keeping loving families together, and that includes your feline family members. And it can be very, very disheartening when the family's at the end of their rope, and that's when they contact us, when they can't put up with it anymore. Reach out before then. Reach out to us. when you're having problems so that we can help you solve them. And talk to your friends and family. Same thing. Have them reach out, okay? We don't ever want anybody to feel like they don't have any other options but to get rid of their beloved family member because they just can't take it anymore, right? Help us help them. Have them reach out so that we can give them strategies to get through this. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I will stick around for questions if anybody has any questions. But before we do that, do want to plug, we have some more upcoming webinars in rounding out the fall. So in a couple weeks, we'll be talking about native birds and how we can live harmoniously with them. Right before the holiday season, we're going to be talking about choosing pet professionals. So if you're interested in trainers, groomers, veterinarians, dog walkers, house sitters, all sorts of stuff, we'll talk about what we need to look for in these professional people that we're inviting into our lives to help care for our family members. And then, of course, we want to talk about how to keep our pets and ourselves sane and safe during the holidays. So hope to see you there in November. And of course, remember, folks, if at any point you have questions or if you are struggling, reach out to us at DuPage County Animal Services. We save animals and we serve people. That is our mission. We are here to help keep families together, to troubleshoot problems so that everybody is living their best possible life in their homes. And we want to help. So you can reach out to me directly at humane.education@dupagecounty.gov. You can reach out to shelter staff members at 630-407-2800, okay, during business hours. We are more than happy to provide guidance or refer you to additional expertise. Okay, so no question, no problem's too small. Would love to chat with you guys. All right, wonderful. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves or type them into the box, whatever makes the most sense for you.
Any tips on keeping two cats separate during feeding time? Is it mostly just about putting their bowls, far enough away, or are there any, guidelines on that?
Yeah, so what kind of behavior are you seeing during meal times that makes you want to keep them separate? I'm just curious.
We just got a new cat. There's no concerning behaviors per se.
Okay.
It's more just the resident cat is a bit more of a glutton, and I know if given the opportunity, he would take the other cat's food, and she's a tiny little kitten, and
Yeah.
not a glutton, so she would just let it happen. And I worry if we were gone for the day and the feeders go off, the automatic feeders,
Mm-hmm.
he would just take both their food.
Yeah, I understand that. So with something like that, you may want to do supervised meal times only so that you
Okay.
can pick up the kitten's food as soon as she loses interest. This is something that I actually experienced with my dogs. I had one dog that was a grazer, and then we brought in the fattest little beagle you've ever seen in your life, and she would eat up all of her food and then eat up all of his food too. And then he would come back an hour later and there was no food, and he was very confused by this. It was a hard adjustment for everyone. So absolutely, if that is a concern, doing feedings in separate rooms, but also supervising that kitten, because that will also help to train the kitten that meal times are at a specific time, and that, okay, I should eat this while it's in front of me because it's not going to be here in 20, 30, half an hour, whatever, minutes. So I would recommend doing something like that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, wonderful, folks. So if there are no other questions, I don't want to cut anybody off, so feel free to chime in if you do have a question. But I am going to go ahead then and call it a night. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I hope to see you again at a future webinar. I'm going to go ahead and throw our survey link in the chat box. I remembered this time. So please absolutely give us future ideas for our programs. We would absolutely love to hear from you. Have a great rest of your night. And again, if you ever have any problems, feel free to reach out to us, okay? That is what we're here for. Wonderful. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.